But if I said, I want you to go to the airport at 3 o'clock, pick up my cousin who has brown hair and a yellow jacket and is on Delta Flight 28 coming in from Dublin, the chances are that you're going to be able to find my cousin and pick them up because I've given you a level of specificity and armed you with the tools to be able to see her the minute that she comes out of the gate. So I kind of say that an ideal client is similarly, like you're not going to know who that person is unless you've actually defined in great detail who that person is. So I think that's strategy number one. And then number two, like I said, I post every single day, and I really doubled down on my thought leadership. I've always posted thought leadership, but I really just started testing and tracking for the last year. I think you have to create a lot of noise to understand what your audience is rewarding and appreciative of. And I think when you're first starting out and you have a very specific product or a very specific service, it's important to have what are called top of funnel posts, middle of funnel posts, and bottom of funnel posts. Now, a top of funnel post is kind of what I just talked about with the horseback riding. I think that, finding leadership in unsuspecting places is something that anybody can relate to, right? But when I start to really talk about a client transformation and how I shepherded someone from jobless to fully employed at their dream job, that starts to become like a middle of funnel post. And then bottom of funnel is, I'm going to tell you how my product or service works and the features of it. Because at that point, that person's 90% there, and all they need is that last piece of information to either say yes or no to what you're doing. So for me, I think that number one, it was really identifying my ideal client profile. Number two, making a lot of noise to understand what my audience was rewarding and not rewarding, and tracking those posts or those pieces of content. And then the third thing, which I think is really important, once you have already converted clients, much in the way that Adrian already has, or Taylor Yates already has, is mapping the customer journey, reverse engineering from the time they converted back, because there's so much information about the touch points that you made to get them from cold to closed. And that was something that my own coach did with me. And I was so glad that she did, because sometimes you're just sitting in a sea of nothing. You're like, what am I going to tell any stories about today? But then when you track and see what story you told, what the point of engagement was, and when they went from cold to converted, really, really helps when you're telling stories for business.
Amazing. It's like a little masterclass in like 3 minutes there. And if we have time, I'd be keen to come back to Ellen and Adrian. If you want to make a note, that I'd be curious as to how you do that in terms of your funnels and mapping out your kind of conversion rates and those kind of things. How can businesses collaborate internally or externally to share and enhance their position and better connect with potential customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on this earlier, but what are your values? And I think the best example that I can provide of that is, there was a time that I was hosting a workshop with a speaker on efficiency. He was a productivity guru, and he was talking about ways to be more efficient in your business. So I started thinking about big brands in New York City that speak to efficiency: watches, German cars, and shipping delivery. And so in order to figure out where I was going to host this in New York City, I always needed a place to host an event, and I need someone to underwrite some of the cost. So I ended up calling every single car dealership, German car dealership on the west side of Manhattan. The only one that called me back was Volvo. Why? Because Volvo was largely seen as a very Caucasian brand car. And they wanted to be seen accessible to more diverse populations. And that was what I was bringing by hosting my event there.